Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. We have a wonderful round table for you here today where we're going to be talking about the current situation of what parents are facing and what children are facing, the warning signs. How do we speak to our children? How do we stay calm amongst the turmoil so that we don't bring that chaos to our children? I've got three beautiful experts here today, two of them who have been in our wonderful Our Forgotten Children book, which the audio version of it will be coming out for the Christmas. They each contributed a chapter in here, Michaela Gaffin-Stone and Lachelle Atkins, our supermom. And please read those chapters. They're very, very powerful. But we've also got Tina Figel here, who is a parent coach trainer. So everybody here has got some expertise to share with you on how we can navigate the chaos that's going on with our children right now, with our families, how we can give them some techniques and some tools and things like that to get through the chaos that's out there. When our children can grow amid turmoil, everybody wins. This conversation that we're creating Heaven's is safety and loving guidance for our children in a world often shaken by conflict and uncertainty. While the outer world may feel chaotic and destructive, we can still cultivate inner worlds of peace, space, where our children feel valued, heard, and supported. We're going to, in this show, explore how families, communities, educators can plant seeds of hope, resilience, and compassion, ensuring that even amidst the turmoil, children can grow strong, confident, and ready to shine forward. As you know, folks, if anybody who've listened to my shows before, I am a very devoted child advocate, hence the book and many of the shows that I do. I bring parents, educators, and supporters and to raise awareness for children's needs in today's upside down world through conversations and storytelling. I shine a light on the voices and the solutions that nurture safety, resilience, and hope. My mission is simple. When we lift up and protect our children, we plant seeds for the brighter and more compassionate future. Now I'm going to go around and introduce you to everyone. Next is Lachelle Atkins. I've interviewed her a few times. She's interviewed me, and she's only a mother of 15 children, so I think she has a little experience in this field. Welcome, Lachelle. Please do tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate you hosting the space for such a really important topic. I think a lot of times, we shy away from a lot of the hard things,
Mm,
but just having that conversation, brainstorming, and thinking of ways that we can be proactive is so important. So I definitely want to thank you for allowing me for being a part of the conversation. I am known as America's Supermom because my husband and I have 15 children, and I'm very passionate about the conversation around mental health because I went through 13 years of depression myself and three hospitalizations. And now that is something that I have incorporated in my brand, where I help executive women to navigate their brand and their identity in a way that they don't have to sacrifice their health, and at the end of the day, they can minimize the stress and actually shine in the media. So I think a lot of these issues that we find with children, they're very apparent in adults as well. It's
mm.
things that never really got solved, or, we just dusted under the rug, or we just ignored and didn't know what to do. They don't go away. It's important for us to address it. So I'm excited to be a part of the conversation today.
Wonderful. Thank you. Michaela.
Thank you for having me here. I am a board certified behavior analyst. I work with kids and families with autism primarily, other diagnoses also. And I too do a lot of parent coaching because frequently the bigger issues come from the parents. In fact, it's the way the parents handle things. So, for example, how you respond to anxiety is what your children are going to see and they will model. You're modeling it for them, they will do that rather than what you say, they're going to do what you do. So, my task is to help figure out why they're doing what they do and what the result is that they're looking for, and then how to get that differently. And in this day and age, we have a lot of work to do because social media is toxic and it's everywhere. And it's a huge source of anxiety, stress, turmoil. How do you know what you believe? How do you
Mm.
know who's correct, who isn't? How do you know how much is enough? How do you know how much is too much? These days, I think putting anything on is probably too much, but that's a later conversation. So essentially, I'm a behavior analyst and a coach, and I work with people on their behavior patterns to get to a better space.
Oh, I'm loving this. Tina, we recently had our show, but please do share what you do.
I'm Tina Feigl, and I am a former school psychologist. And when I was done doing that, I went to a training to become a life coach. And then I walked out of the training and I said, I'm a parent coach. And I made it up in 2000 because there weren't any other parent coaches at that time. So I'm the mom of three sons. My middle one had some real hard challenges. He was 6 years old, and I had a brand new baby and a 9 year old, and my middle son got cancer.
Mm,
So his anxiety was really enormous. And maybe anxiety is fear where there's no real threat. I think he felt a real threat. So it was fear. It was fear. And so we got help for him. If I had known what I know now, that's what
mm.
a lot of people say to me. Oh, if I'd only had you when my kids were growing up. And I say, me too.
Yes.
Exactly.
Um, and um,
It's the
so
reason for these shows.
yes, yes. And he grew up to he's in good health now. It's just wonderful. He grew up to become a child therapist. And his therapist at the time that I lined him up with took him for walks on their therapy sessions. And so he took his kids for walks on the therapy sessions too, and he was doing that work directly. Now he's the mental health coordinator for a school district in the state of Washington. So it's just so wonderful to watch his resilience. And my other two sons lived through it too. I had a newborn
Mm.
and a 9 year old, and the 9 year old really felt the impact of it as much as anybody. So uh, that led me to just starting. I just sent out a bunch of spam emails at the time. And then I started speaking and collecting people's email addresses on a clipboard. And since then, it's been 25 years. That was 2000 when I started. It's been 25 years of coaching parents and training parent coaches. I've trained over 850 people to be coaches worldwide. And it's just been just the most rewarding work in the world because, as we all know, if we can strengthen that relationship between parent and child, it can be the generational effect, right?
Oh boy. Yes.
And
Yes,
so,
most certainly.
yeah, and I'm specialize in everything, but trauma is one of my big areas in which I work with foster and adoptive parents. But I will work with anyone who needs help. And it's all about connecting and using brain science and heart science instead of that was willful on the part of my child when he acted up. No, it was an attempt to survive.
Mm.
And that's how I explain it. And I talk about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and the heart to brain neural pathways and all that so that they can see that it's not willful, it's physiological.
So much to learn here today. I always find it interesting when I do my shows how it ends up just, you know, Is there any such a thing as an accident or serendipity? But you know how shows follow a theme, and of course this week it's all been a raising our gifted children. This is the third show on that for different reasons. And you know, one of the things I was talking about, I have millennial children, so 36, 38, no 36, 40, and 42. And you know, only one of them who's about to have her third baby in 2 weeks. So third boy. So I'm going to be in the three boy club here. Um, and one is married with a stepdaughter, and the other one has no intentions of having kids at all. And how this generation has looked at it and saying, I don't have to be defined by being a mother. I don't have to have children. There are other things that I can explore and do in life. Or that the cost of life, can I really give that kid the quality that it should have? And I think it's changed just in one generation of how much it's changed with our children, because they have more access to information
Mhm.
and they can make that choice now of, I don't have to follow the status quo. I can make a choice here. And, you know, my one is about to have a third child. They are parents first, right? They're parents first before anything else. With the others, they've got careers, they've got passions, they've got desires. And they thought, well, can I put my children first? Not at the sacrifice of all the other stuff that I love. And in the past, we would make parents feel guilty for this, right? What do you mean? What do you mean you don't want to have children? Or what do you mean you've got passions for doing something else? You're a mother now, and that's all you should be. And you know, Lachelle, you know, you have a career and you have many children and grandchildren now. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think one of the things we need to address, I think, before we even get into what our children are going through, is the conflict that our parents are going through, to
Mhm.
have and not to have, or can you have a career if you have children? Are you feeling guilty for having it? Are you stressed out at work and now you're bringing that home? You know,
Mhm.
there's a whole load of navigation. We tell women they can have it all. You can have a family and you can have a career. Then what we don't do is give them how to balance it all,
Mhm.
right? How to place time upon themselves in their relationship, the relationship with their children and their career, and also get sleep, right?
Mhm.
So I think, you know, one of the things we need to address, okay, Meg is right there. Okay, Meg.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to point out is we always focus on how she is going to do all of this.
Yes, yes.
Where is he
Yeah.
in this? You know, it should be really a question of how are both parents
Hmm.
going to navigate and harmonize their lives with children in it? Because what I frequently find is the parents are either all about each other or they're all about the kids, but they don't tend to have a harmony between maintaining their relationship and being with their children. Somebody is missing out.
Hmm.
And I think one of the issues is actually the whole thing of, well, she can have it all.
Mm.
Well, sure, he does. You know,
Yes.
why can she not? You know, and I think we're lagging behind as a society globally, really, that still says, okay, she can have kids and a career, but she has to do everything with the kids as well. And it's like we need to really drop that now and get over it and sort of acknowledge that he can be an equal partner. He can
Yeah.
change diapers. He
Hmm.
can address the drama. He can even help with the bake sale. You know, like
Yeah.
he can do a
Yes.
lot of things. So when parents are listening to this, or would-be parents are listening to this, please expand your thinking to include the couple. And if you happen
Mhm.
to be somebody who is opting to be a parent on your own, expand to include a circle. Like who is going to
Yes.
help you?
Mhm.
This
Yes.
village that's going to help raise your kid. So putting all the stress on the woman to have it all, I
Hmm.
think is a big part of the stress. So even though there's less sort of, oh, you shouldn't do that, you know, you have to be all about your kids, we still haven't let go of,
Yeah.
but you're all about your kids and you get to have a career. It's like, yeah, he's in there too.
He most certainly is. They
Mhm.
didn't come by the stalk.
Okay.
Tina.
The way I like to explain that when I train parent coaches, particularly, is that humans were built to live in tribes.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And what
Hmm.
have we done? We've created garage door openers and closers. We've created no more front porch sitting, and connecting with the people around us. We've created individual homes, that it's not natural for human beings. It's not natural that we live in islands like this with our children. My oldest son has 4 kids, and my youngest has one, and my middle one and his wife decided not to. So I've got it all in my family, and I respect every bit of it. And I see my oldest son just really managing a very high level job, and for children all involved in sports. And it's been wild. It's been wild. But he's in there 100%. It's just so
Mhm.
wonderful to watch him. Both of my sons with kids are in there as much as they can possibly be. So
Mhm.
And
I'm
that's
Well,
part of the problem with society is that many of the fathers aren't in there, right? Because,
exactly.
and that's one of the problems, Lachelle.
Well, and I was just going to say, we have to also remember that we just weren't taught that. When I think back,
Hmm.
when I was younger, the male was gone, the woman was in the home, and we have not come to terms with both parents working and having a career. And so, that element of transition a lot of times has just not been there, or even talked about or embraced. And depending on the field of work that the mother has, that's even another issue. If it's a male dominated industry that she's a part of, with feeling that you don't belong and you have to prove yourself and all these different things. But I think it is a situation where even having a tribe within your home, for
Hmm.
me, I was an only child, so there was a lot of navigating between just who can set the table, who is going to help wash dishes, really creating a support system within your home, which is just as important, helping younger ones with their homework. Again, I love the part that was shared earlier about modeling. We actually model these things, and it's up to us to really start
Hmm.
the education process in our homes, and then the support that we give to our neighbors. When
Hmm.
someone is sick, are you taking food over to them?
Hmm.
It's little things that we could do that don't have to be broadcast or
Hmm.
cost a lot of money. But it is getting back to the relationship and the communication. I believe that a lot of times, we're not going to have all the answers.
Hmm.
And it's a trial and error. What works for some person may not work for someone else. But I think just having the feeling to be open about it,
Yeah.
I think is where the challenge, because I struggle myself feeling that pressure of being the mom, doing all the things. But a lot of it was just in my own head. No one was saying, you're not doing enough. You know,
Yeah.
they were telling me I was doing too much, but I couldn't hear it because I was remembering what I had thought in my head or what I grew up believing. So it's a hard thing to navigate.
We need to go back to the village. If you have to, we need to get back to the village. Everybody used to be part of a village where we would look out for each other. I,
Mhm.
was a kid that used to take my doll's pram and go around the neighborhood, and people just looked out for each other. Now, if we don't see our
Mhm.
kid at the end of the driveway, we panic, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in a world that is like that. Tina was before you, Mickey. Then I'll let you come to you, Tina.
I was going to say that I think one of the big things we can help parents with is creating the tribe in their home
Yes.
by authentically needing their children. And this we've gone away from because of screens, and I see that people just sort of let the kid be on a screen because they got so much on their mind, and it just takes it off their plate for a little while, or even hours, who knows how long. And we're not needing our kids the way we need to, because that's how they feel like they belong,
Hmm. Hmm.
when they've got
Mickey?
something to contribute, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Give them that sense of contribution. Yeah.
I wanted to mention that there are still some communities who live the way you've been describing, where everybody keeps an eye on the kids.
Hmm.
If you go to a Jewish community, you see
Hmm.
the area where it is predominantly Jewish. Everybody knows everybody's kids. Everybody knows where they're going. Your child can go running off down the street, and somebody 2 blocks away is going to say, "Hey, I've got him. I can see him here." And
Mhm.
everybody knows everyone. That still exists. It's just that it's not the norm now,
No.
which
Mhm.
is a big concern. And to speak to Tina's comment on the iPad, basically babysitting the kids, that
Mhm.
is a massive problem. And I see it in so many places. The other day, I was with my husband. We were in a store, and this little kid was in a shopping cart, and she was having a massive screaming meltdown tantrum. And mom was being very kind of, not interacting and just getting her stuff. And I thought, yep, that's not going to last. And as they were toddling along, I suddenly heard the silence. And I turned to my husband and I said, that child now has a phone.
Hmm.
And as they came around the corner, kids there with the phone scrolling, because that was addictive behavior. That
Yes.
was a child in full-on withdrawal, wanting her screen. And if she was 4, that's about as old as she was.
Mm.
But she was so addicted to the phone, and mom gave it for a peaceful life, of course. And from a behavior analysis perspective,
Mm.
the antecedent, the thing that goes before, is the child's missing the phone. Behavior, major tantrum,
Yeah.
right? The reinforcer, the consequence is mom said, here's your phone. So next time they're in a situation where she doesn't have access to that phone, she's going to go straight to the major tantrum because it works.
Yes.
That behavior gets her what she wants. So we all see this. We've all done it at some point where you give in to the child having the tantrum because you want it to stop. But what you actually did is you just set yourself up for a whole bigger problem. And now that child is getting all kinds of input into their very delicate
Yeah.
developing brain that is going to derail their attention span, their
Yeah.
thought processes, what they expect as being normal in life, that they're absorbing this information. And it's pretty awful information. So, and the brain is on overwhelm, right? Your
Yeah.
neurons are firing like crazy with all this information coming in, doesn't know what to do with it because frankly, there isn't anything. And you just go into overwhelm. Think of a 4-year-old that's overwhelmed by tech.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and this is what we have,
Right.
right?
Which builds addiction, and eventually that addiction won't be enough, and then there have to be
Mhm.
a different form of stimulation, and
Mhm.
and it escalates from there. And we are guilty with the kids of now and again allowing them to watch something, but it's educational. Miss Rachel, Bippy, because they're always teaching something, and they sing along, or there's a conversation to go along with it. But yeah, like social media or all those type of things. Look, no child needs to be on that, not even teenagers. I don't know if you've seen the movie Adolescence.
Mhm.
Uh, Oh, Michelle, you've got to watch this.
Mhm.
It actually swept the Grammys with 8 awards, and the young man who plays the young boy who killed somebody, and it's all from a meme, and it's brilliantly filmed over 6 episodes, and they're all long shots, and so the acting is like stage acting. They're in that scene from
Mhm.
beginning to end, no cuts and start again, and some brilliant acting, and it's a different perspective over this one child that killed another child. The
Mhm.
family, the teachers, the police, everybody, their different reaction to it. And I think it's so poignant. And I think the reason why it got so much adulation is because it is a reflection on what's going on in society right now, where our children feel more comfortable communicating through social media than they do through actually speaking to us because they don't know how to have the actual dialogue. Tina?
Exactly. And I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Sarah. We need to equip parents with an alternative.
Mhm.
We have to show them that there is hope, that this is not a hopeless situation. And we have to allow boys particularly to do things that are helpful and kind and involve empathy, because what we do is, you know, you're a guy, don't cry. You're a
Mm,
guy, don't have any emotions. Don't be in touch with, oh no, 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 I don't want to hear that out of you, kind of
yeah.
thing. Be a man. And that has been a major insult to society.
Hmm.
Really has. And there are other societies in which, I mean, I just went to France for a little while and I saw men just interacting so differently than
Hmm.
from what women were doing. You know, they were just sitting, touching each other, reading a book together in the airport and such, you know, just a completely different thing than we would see here. And I just, and who picks up guns and kills people? I mean, I live 8 miles away from Annunciation School.
Hmm.
And who picks up the guns? It's those men who have been suppressing those emotions all this time and not found any acceptance for the full range of emotion in their life. There's
Hmm.
anger and competition, you know,
Hmm.
those emotions are okay. You know, I got to beat that person and I got to get mad when things don't go my way. the, the full range is not available to them,
No,
and so they're the ones who pick up the guns and shoot people. And time after time we see an isolated male doing these things. And oh, we have to turn this around, and we have to
right, we do.
support our parents in doing it. Go ahead.
Right from childhood, right from the beginning, Mickey.
I just wanted to very quickly point out that you live very close to a school that just had a shooting. I live in Colorado, and we also just had a shooting. So that's at least two of us that live in places where school
Yeah,
shootings just happened, and school only started a couple of weeks ago.
yeah,
So, the fact that this is something that people don't even particularly comment on
yeah. It's become
is
normal. Oh,
mind-blowing to me. The
yes,
US is the eighth country I've lived in, and I have never in my life seen the kind of stuff that I see in this
yeah,
country, and that people accept as being part of the deal. I quote, it's there is no amount of gun violence that is acceptable in order to have your Second Amendment right. This is utterly bizarre to me, and I will never settle with that. But just think of the stress of a kid starting the school year.
yeah.
And one of the first things they do when they get into school is they have the active shooter drills, right? Like, which cupboard are you going to hide in?
Mm,
And how are you going to hide under the desk? What are you going to do? It's one of the first things they do in the first couple of weeks in
yes,
school. You have an active shooter drill. Now, for kids with special needs, for example, you got a child with autism going into a school like that. That is traumatic. That is
yes,
stressful in the extreme. Just having that drill, because now that child feels utterly unsafe, and they are correct. The teachers are nervous about anything that kids say that's a bit out there or a bit different. So a child with autism may present with, some rather dramatic story or something that the teacher then freaks out about. Why? Because of the society we live in.
yeah.
And this is, the start of the school year. You're not
Mm,
focused on what are you going to learn now? You're
no,
focused on will I
can I
get out of
survive?
school today?
Yes,
You know? Wow. So we
yeah.
are dealing with an awful lot on so many levels. It's not just social media, it's
Hmm.
it's gun violence in schools, it's neglect at home, it's all kinds of things.
Well,
And parents who are ill-equipped to
Yeah,
deal with kids in these days simply because they weren't given the tools.
no.
That's why they need parent coaches, that's why they need
Mm,
support. That BCBAs are helpful or can be, depending on, who's bringing them in and when. But support is really essential in this day and age. And I still come across parents who say, well, it should be easy. It's natural to be a parent. Like I shouldn't need
doesn't
help,
come with a manual, sorry.
right? And it's like, but I shouldn't need help. I feel
No,
bad asking for help. And it's like,
yes.
oh, no, 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 no. You need help. We all need help. Like everybody needs help. That's the situation we're in now.
Yeah.
well, and I think
Before you just before you get
Okay.
into that, have any of you seen that commercial of back to school? I've got this backpack and I've got this phone, I've got this, and it's all about, I've got a backpack I can hide under, I've got this, and then the last scene is a young girl. I've got a phone to tell my mother I love her as the shooter comes into the room. And it's an
Mm.
incredibly impactful commercial of showing kids excited to go back to school. And then, as you said, the things that they need to prepare for the shooter because it has become the norm and it hardly even makes the news nowadays.
Yeah.
right? And it is so completely wrong. So, Lachelle, I just wanted to intercept that before you come in. What do you have to say?
Yeah, well, and I think, the fact that you bring that up is just, times have changed.
Yeah.
And not only do we need to address this with the children, but also with the teachers, with the
Mm,
parents, because, there is trauma, whether you are in a school that has a shooting or not. Just the fact that you're doing a drill, I mean, that
mm,
alone is
yes.
triggering
Yeah.
to a lot of children. And you're not sure if a new kid has come from a school that was a part of a shooting. It's not, a conversation that we normally would have, but I feel like, these are some of the things that we just keep on pushing under the rug.
Mm,
When you're dealing with a school shooting, that's something that should be addressed nationwide to me.
yes.
Because we're not doing anything, we're not learning anything from it outside of, okay, there needs to be stricter gun laws or whatever the case is. Well, we need to have drills, but we're not thinking about the emotional uh anguish that we're putting these kids through and the parents. There's times that you're sent an email that is saying, okay, we had a threat today and there's a soft lockdown. I mean, you don't know the state of mind. I've gotten these type of messages myself just in a day. And your first thought is what's going on. Everybody's trying to call the school. You're not
Mm,
being productive with anything getting done, and it just really is a problem. So I think, we need to have a top down, up, starting from the bottom, going to the top, coming from the top, going to the bottom. It needs to be addressed on all areas because we're just continuing to put a band-aid on an open wound. So
mhm.
it definitely is something we need to be mindful of.
I think, kind of, before I get to Tina, one of the things I think that we're forgetting and that we seem to have lost sight of is that we should be doing everything to protect life, all life. I don't care, polka dot pink, straight, not straight, which nationality, which religion, I don't care. Life. We've put rights as higher than the value of life. And when life is being so disregarded, just another one. As a certain person who was recently assassinated said, if a few people have to get shot for other people to have their rights to guns, and then unfortunately those words used him as an example. Uh, when you've got that kind of rhetoric out there, what it's telling you is you don't count, right? You don't count. I don't care about you as long as I've got me rights, right? As long as somebody's making money out of this. And when are we going to put life first? When are we going to look at investing in our youth, investing in our families? So we don't see people looking at it as an option to go and shoot somebody because they're feeling left out or not unheard of or don't know how to cope with their emotions, right? We're putting the money everywhere but in the support of families and their children. We're not giving them the skills, we're not giving them the tools, we're not giving them the support, we're not giving the education. Going right back to our young men, our young boys, are we teaching them to do chores, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be considerate, to listen, to learn, to embrace their feminine side? Right? Are we teaching them to be he-man and it's only with a gun in your hand that you're a man? Right? Which is the doctrine that we're seeing so much out there right now. And what is it doing to society? It's crippling. It's crippling society, and everybody is in fear mode, whether they, say it or not. Everybody's got that underlying fear mode. What if it happens to me? Am I safe sending my kids to school? Am I safe going to work? Am I safe free speech? Am I safe doing anything anywhere? Because underlying it is this fear that it's got out of control. The chaos has got out of control and it needs to be honed back in. It's not going to be honed back in by the top because they're the ones causing the chaos. It has to be honed back in by the parents, by the teachers, by the caregivers. We're the ones that are going to have to change everything as usual. Tina, what did you want to say?
Well, I'm just going to piggyback on what you said. We have to, in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and at our school functions, remind children that there's hope, that there's love
Yes.
here, that there's love here and here and here and here. If we don't do that, it's a hopeless situation. And we don't want to raise kids who just are in such terrible fear all the time. Well, partly they have a bit of dissociation as young children. They can't let the full
Yeah.
weight of it into their.
And we don't want them to.
No, exactly. You know, that would be devastating if they could feel the full impact of it. Some of them do, many of them don't have to, which is good, but also ground up.
Mm.
You know, we really need to be sure that kids know they feel safe in their own homes and that they are safe in their small communities and as safe as they can be in their schools. But just the fact that it's possible somebody could bring a gun into a school is just horrendous. It's just
Mm.
horrendous. And we need new leadership. We need leadership that says this cannot go on.
Treat it as the disease it is, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Vicky?
Yeah, the thing with dissociation, it's a very natural coping response and it saves the brain from imploding, right? There's so much I got to remove myself from this. The problem with a child learning to dissociate is whenever they're faced with something that's really hard or traumatic or generally appalling, they're going to know, oh yeah, not consciously, but oh yeah, I can dissociate. I'm just going to remove myself from this. And there's no place for true empathy when you're dissociated. By definition, you are not part of that equation right now. You've removed yourself. So if we have kids dissociating as a natural defense mechanism, we have another layer of problem in society.
Mm-hmm.
So again, addressing the thing that's causing everybody to dissociate is key. You've got kids who are dissociating, then they plug into social media. These are not the same species
Mm-hmm.
anymore as we were when we were
Yeah.
born, when we were raised. These kids are not the same. I mean, one of my stances with parents is look, if you're raising your children the same way you were raised, you're out of date
Yes.
because these kids aren't the same as you. They have arrived in a different world at a different time with a different set of challenges and a different set of possibilities. So you have to parent forward, not over your shoulder. This is how my parents did it, therefore I'm doing it that way. There are
Get
some
with the
things that
times.
may work. There may be some values that still work, and there may be some that need to be new again. And but parenting has to be proactive and forward thinking, not, oh, I want it like it was before.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Whatever we had before isn't
Gone.
coming back. We're
Yeah.
not there. It's not happening. It's done. That's in your history books now. What we have to look forward to is how are we going to navigate this? There is stuff happening. How are we going to be whole and healthy in the middle of that? And a big part of it starts with the parents. It must do. Them taking care of themselves and modeling that for the child. How are you handling your own mental health? What are you doing other than I've had a rough day. I'm going for the wine now. Or,
Yeah. Yeah.
I need my second pack of cigarettes or whatever it is, right? Like, is your coping mechanism, your go-to thing, is it healthy?
Yeah.
Is it something that your child could do and you'd be happy about that? Do you have a system? And for the parents listening that don't, okay, cool. Recognition is the first thing. After that, figure out what can you do to handle yourself that's going to help your child. When they see you doing that, they could do it too. Because if they see a parent who's drinking half a bottle of wine because they're stressed, swearing at the TV and whatever else, this child is learning, okay, that's what I do. And then I'll go to school and dissociate. And, life's great. You know that meme with the dog with the big eyes that says, this is fine, everything's fine, and it's
Yeah.
all on fire? These are our kids in school, right?
Yeah.
And we have to show them a different
give
way.
give them the skills and the tools. I kind of wish Duati Bastida was a part of this today because she teaches children yoga and meditation techniques
Mhm.
and everything, which we need to teach our children very, very young because it's giving them the skills. And talking about burnout and taking on too much and trying to be the perfect parent and
Mhm.
combusting because of it. Lachelle, this is exactly, what has happened to you. You were trying to be the
Mhm.
super mom and not managing things, and it hospitalized you 3 times.
And I think, I love what you're saying, but another thing, like this is a real life example. I took one of my children to the pediatrician for their annual checkup. And so they have a list to kind of check on their mental health. Are you making sure that, you're not having more than an hour of screen time? And I said, they have screens at school. There's no
Mm,
books anymore. Everything's computer oriented. And he said, well, I mean, after school, you want to make sure they only get an hour in. And so I feel like, we are living
mhm,
hypocritically, which makes
yeah.
it even harder
Mhm,
to have a place of, okay, listen to this when this is going on. But when this happens, and when you have those type of situations when they don't even have the
mhm,
wisdom to understand what they should be looking for or not, it ends up being even more problematic. And so I think there's a lot to round the technology advances that we've all been faced with and still trying to navigate on our own. And the kids are in this at the same time. It's one of those things where 5 years from now, we can see what the side effects are, but right now, everyone's knee deep in it, and no one has the answers, even from, what are some of the challenges with their eyes, right?
mhm,
Is it good to look at a screen? How is that going to affect your vision? What about these earbuds? Is it going to impact your hearing, 5 years from now? So I just think there are so many things that are coming so quickly that, it's important for us to get back to some of the principles around just authority. With kids now, they see stuff on social media and they think they can do it.
yeah.
They don't even think to ask their parents, does this make sense? I have kids that come over to our house, their parents just drop them off. There's no coming in, meeting the parents, seeing if they're in a safe environment or anything, so it's just on so many levels that it's the little things that we can do in terms of consistency. You can start off where it's like, okay, this is dinner without any electronics, right? That seems like, why are we even talking about it? But it's important. I mean,
Yes.
how many restaurants do you go to and people are sitting there and everybody is on the phone?
No,
It's like, what is the point of even being
texting
together?
each other.
It's
Oh,
crazy.
I know.
So, yeah.
Yes, Tina.
One thing that I have found is that when I coach parents, and they have felt a little distant from their kids because they simply do not know what to do because generationally this has never existed.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
but once they know what to do, that increases their emotional health as well. And
Hmm.
I really notice parents coming out of anxiety because they know what to do. So there's
Hmm.
hope in that, a lot of hope. I just wanted to mention some hope here because it's
Yes, yes.
been
Well,
a little bit rough.
yeah, but before we get to into on the hope aspect of it is that when we are aware, we care. When we care, we do something about it, but we can't be unaware. So, like, we're aware this is the problem. We're aware what's going on is having an effect on us and our children. Now, the invitation is, what are we going to do about it? And
Mhm.
this is where parents need to get together and have a conversation. All
Mhm.
right, I'm worried about X, Y, and Z. What can we do as a society, as a community, as neighbors, as our kids at the same school? What can we do to change the narrative, change the direction? Because it's all very well one parent doing it, but the kids go to someone else's house and they're doing something totally different. How
Mhm.
about we bring the parents together and say, as a community, let's set some ground rules, some ground standards,
Mhm.
right? And that we're going to be consistent at whatever house our children go to, that,
Mhm.
they're not going to get this at one and not that at the other, because they're never going to want to go to that house because they can get all of this at this house. So I think a lot of it is, we know the problem, but now how do we put our heads together and become the solution? And that comes from listening to shows like this, but also come from the willing to come out of your house, knock on your neighbor's door, find out who your kids are wanting to play with, and sit down and have a conversation and have it, go somewhere where you feel, I'm now taking the reins. And it's not, well, my kid isn't going to do that. No, none of that. It's
Mhm.
about, how do we show them a better way? How do
Mhm.
we make it fun in a game of communication without the apparatuses that they can do?
Mhm.
Playing in the mud and how much fun it is. Create something that steers them down a different street. Mickey?
I wanted to piggyback on the idea of hope, which
Mm-hmm.
is one of my favorite things that Mr. Rogers said, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yes.
And he said, whenever things are getting rough, whenever things are getting bad, look for the helpers. There are
Mm.
always helpers. And I love that. And
Mm.
so for parents, my approach is a little different to what you've just said, because I think we need to start where we are, and that would be a lovely end point. But starting where we are is look for who is in your environment that you could reach out to and maybe develop that helper relationship. Who is it? And it can be different. Some people are going to look to their church or their synagogue or, their mosque or whatever. They're going to go that route. Other people, maybe it's your street, or, hey, there are some areas, like if you go to New York, good luck finding a tree.
Mm.
I work with people in New Jersey. That's my clientele. They live in block upon block of not a lot of anything natural. So playing in the dirt isn't an option.
Mhm.
What can they do? Where are their helpers? Where are their little communities that they can tap into? And one of the things I think of is when homeschooling happens in an organized way, meaning you have a real curriculum and a group of other people who are doing homeschooling, those organizations typically will have parents meeting up for
Mhm.
social activities with their kids. Let's all go to this museum. Let's all go here. That kind of arrangement, I think, could be very helpful, even if your kids are in a school, right? I'm not saying everybody should suddenly homeschool, because I tell you, I could not have homeschooled my kids. I don't have that skill set. That is not my strength. So, yay for them going to school. But what do you do socially?
Mhm.
Where can you interact, and where are those opportunities in your particular environment? And it's going to look different for everybody, and it might not be that everybody's parenting the same way or has the same values. I doubt that you'll get that, but at least, this is a group that I can feel good with. They're doing stuff that we like. Over here is something useful, and just tapping into what's out there and other people who maybe are looking for the same thing you're looking for.
Mhm.
So, my question is, where are your helpers? How can you find them? Think about it. Where would you reach out? Who would you reach to?
Mhm.
There has to be a
Mhm.
starting point.
Mhm. Michelle?
Yeah, and I agree with that as well as, documentation. I think writing is so important to be able to reflect, to think about the things that you want to strive to keep you grounded. And I think that's a good starting point with our kids to teach them how to journal, how
Mm.
to think about their thoughts. That was very therapeutic for me and still is, in terms for me to be able to observe how I'm thinking and understanding how my thoughts can impact my behavior. And so I think when we teach them that from a young age, it gives them that strong foundation where they can navigate through a lot of things that are outside of their control, but then also learning what is in their control and what's not,
Mhm.
and finding some good ways, healthy ways to begin to do that. So, being able to get it on paper, because, there's a lot of times when we're going through emotional chaos, there are no words.
Yeah.
Someone could be right there asking you all the questions and you just don't know what to say. You can't verbalize it. So when you're getting into the practice of understanding how to put a voice to your emotions, I think that's powerful. So for me, I think also helping them to be very aware of who they are and what their strengths and fears and all those different things could be, as well as what do they want to see different and how can they be a part of that different picture.
Yeah.
So writing for me is very a good thing for them to learn.
Tina.
I couldn't agree with you more, Lachelle. And what I encourage parents to do to kind of spark that is to get a notebook and write an I see you letter to their child and leave it on the pillow. And at the end of their letter, they say, feel free to write back to me if you'd like to, no pressure, but you can say anything you want. Just put this on my pillow when you're done. And that has been one of the major tools that has worked magic with parents and kids coming together, because it's not the spoken word, and
Mm.
kids become allergic to the sound of parents' voices, as we realize. So and it creates kind of an intimacy, because I tell the parents, never mention their letter, never mention it out loud. It's
Mhm.
sort of like the secret that we have between each other,
That's good.
and I love the idea of then it can expand to journaling on their own. I love that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It's a safe place, isn't it? I think that's what kids need, is a safe place. There's so many kind of rules and regulations and expectations and dictations being thrown at them, left, right, and center. Where do they have a safe space to hear themselves? To hear
Yeah.
what we're all constantly talking about, inside out life, not the outside in life. Being in touch with who you are, why you are, what you're here to do. That self discovery is one that we take from the moment we're born right to when we go. There's always something we're discovering about ourselves. If we don't teach children to listen in, to find space and time to go in and hear their own inner voice, to express it in any which way they want without judgment or persecution, right? To be feel free and safe to actually say, I've just had these thoughts and I'd like to talk about it. And not a parent trying to fix it, but a parent saying, I'm open and ready to hear you, right? Because sometimes all the child needs to do is speak. This is how I feel. Oh, I feel better now for letting it out. I feel better now for not feeling like I have to hold it in or I have to manage it or that I'm being stupid, right? It's just having that sense of loving space that they can trust, where they feel they can actually speak how they're feeling. And they may have written it, but we also want them to articulate it as well. Yes, Miki.
Speaking of communication, as a behavior analyst, I do like to point out to parents that behavior is communication.
Mm,
So when you have a big behavior, and I typically do not refer to behavior as bad behavior because I don't think it is, it's big behavior. And when a child is doing something big, it means they are experiencing and communicating something big. Our role is to figure out, what are you trying to communicate here? What are you saying is a problem? Because if a child is acting out in a big way, they have a big problem, and we
mm,
need to figure that out. So journaling, love it. And I wish they would still teach cursive in school. It drives me nuts that they're not. And I would ask every parent, if you can write cursive, please teach your child to write cursive, because it is a very key connection for your brain to the thing you're writing. Computers don't do a journal anywhere near as well as actually writing in cursive. I've studied neuroscience, and I can say for a fact that this is a thing. Your neurons will work better when you're writing by hand. So even if you're doing it shorthand, it doesn't matter, put it on the paper. So yes, I agree with everybody on that one. It's absolutely essential, but we need to stop looking at behavior as bad behavior, good behavior. I'm going to reward good behavior. It's like, no, that's very cool. I love that you did that. That's awesome. I hope you feel great about it. Now, what are we working on over here? What's this behavior mean? What are you aiming for? How can we get you there in a different way? Right? And something I want to mention, I cannot diagnose this, okay? So I am not giving anybody a diagnosis, but I would like for people who have kids with big emotional responses to very small stimuli, I would like you to look up rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD. It typically comes along with the diagnosis of ADHD. A lot of people that have the one will have the other. And what that is, it's a wiring of the brain, but it basically shows up as a strong emotional reaction. You would say an overreaction to a very small event.
Mhm.
So you didn't brush your teeth, therefore, you're not getting story time or whatever, and the child has a complete, absolute meltdown, major thing, throwing things, all the rest of it. That is a very large response to a relatively small thing. So it's something to consider. There is no treatment per se, to the best of my knowledge. Tina may know differently, but as far as I'm aware, there isn't a specific here, take this pill and it'll go away thing for rejection sensitive dysphoria. But in this day and age where we're post COVID, kind of, we're certainly post lockdown, right? And we've got all this social media, there's all the turmoil politically and what have you that everybody's dealing with. I'm going to say there is a massive uptick in
Mm.
rejection sensitive dysphoria in our kids because they are so fear-based and
Mhm.
so on tiptoes about
Yeah.
everything that the smallest thing will set them off. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because if your child's having big reactions and big emotions, telling them to calm down is, here's my container of gasoline that I'm just going to pour on top of your fire. Because, when you are dysregulated emotionally, your brain is flooded with cortisol. And you are ready to run from the saber-toothed tiger. You are ready to run from the source of stress. You cannot think at that
Yep.
point. Your brain is flooded. So, ready to run goes up, IQ goes down, which is why telling a woman to calm down when she's upset has never worked in the history of ever. Well, it doesn't work for kids either. And frankly, it doesn't work for men. So, this is just something I wanted to bring to people's attentions. Please look it up,
Mm.
rejection sensitive dysphoria, and see, does your child tick a whole bunch of those boxes?
Mm.
If yes, you might want to talk to a mental health professional and get some additional resources for that, because that is a very big thing and they're not going to necessarily get over it. It's a mental health issue.
Mm. And before I get to you, Tina, there's one of the things that I want to interject here is that we're actually finding our children, we're kind of referring to them as indigo children, children that are actually born a lot more sensitive, more in tuned, more cosmic, if you want to call it. And they're just being able to see things and feel things on a deeper level than we did as growing up. And I think they are more sensitive to the negativity and the vibration out there because they're could essentially come in here as the peace equalizers, showing us a different path. And I think we're seeing a lot more of those children being born today. And it's very hard for them to navigate this type of world. And so they do get very frustrated and don't know how to articulate it when really all they want is an equilibrium of peace and creativity. And it's very hard to find that amongst the turmoil. So whatever we can do to help them maintain that rhythm and not get caught up in the hurricane is the best we can do for them. Tina, you have to say.
So the brain chemistry that I talk about, or the brain functioning, is that the amygdala, which is the threat alarm, right back by the brainstem, which is where all our survival happens, right? The amygdala is the threat alarm. It says to the child, if your mom and dad see you, you're going to survive. If they don't, get their attention.
Yes.
And so rejection sensitive dysphoria is getting the attention of the parents. So the parents are in a unique situation to do this because they are the ones upon whom the child is dependent for their survival.
Mhm.
So if they learn reflective listening,
Mhm.
that calms the amygdala. And a steady dose of reflective listening, we're talking the child's lifetime, um, from the parents can unlock a lot of that anxiety that comes when there's a threat, because that's what it is. It's a threat when it's rejection sensitivity, right? And the parents are uniquely equipped to calm that amygdala so that the prefrontal cortex, where the logic lives, can come online. And they never operate at the same time. You know, they're neighbors in the same skull, but they never operate at the same
Yeah.
time. So, so just helping parents understand how powerful they are in relieving this sense for children is just, as I said, miraculous to watch it happen when they realize they've got the power with their words, with their love. You know, parents want to love their children,
Yes.
but they often are just misguided on how it works the best. You know, they just don't know. So they're innocent. They're just doing what their parents did and it's not
Yes.
working. And the kids are innocent. They're just reacting to what their bodies are telling them. And they're totally unaware that they have an amygdala or a prefrontal cortex. They're just screaming, you know, because they're saying, see me, see me, see me. So I'm going to survive.
But I want to interject this, but maybe before we get there, is that shame and embarrassment. When a kid is told off, or why are you doing that? It's merely either embarrassment that I've been called out, or I feel shameful for I've done something wrong. And then they kind of go into defense mode or switch off mode altogether. I know, Mickey, you want to respond to what Tina said there, but I would like you all to address that, please, afterwards. Okay.
Nope, I lost my thread.
Oh, sorry, love. Okay, let's hit this one and your Fred will pick up on that. So, when a kid has, how would we hold them accountable for their action to show them that it is wrong? Right, hitting your brother or what, things like that. Oh, she's got it now. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
No, I've got that one. Teaching personal responsibility is
Yes.
absolutely key. And
Mm,
parents having personal responsibility
mm,
is absolutely key. And knowing the difference between personal responsibility and places of shame and blame. Typically when I do a podcast or I do a talk, somebody's going to say to me, if you have one thing to tell people, what would you tell them? Or if you could eradicate one thing from the world, what would it be? Well, the one thing from the world, I don't say world hunger and I don't say war. I say blame and shame, which is two sides of the same coin. Because if those things go away,
yeah.
you don't have world hunger and you don't have war because there's no need for any of that nonsense, right? Blame and shame put you at the lowest vibration, the lowest level of functioning, and you cannot operate from there. You cannot make good decisions from that space because you can't see out of the hole you're in. Right. So you are totally stuck in that space. And the thing I was going to say after Tina just came back to me, which is I firmly believe nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm going to make some really lousy decisions today. You know, we don't do that. So parents do want to do the best they can, and they're doing what they can with what they know and what they have. And we have so much around us to tell us we're wrong, to tell us, this is you're in the wrong space, you're in the wrong time, you're in the wrong whatever, that navigating that is also a difficulty. And when you look at social media, how many advertisements do you see that say, stop what you're doing, do this instead?
Yeah.
And there's so much of that. If I'm looking, I scroll past those things as fast as I can before they
Yes.
land because I don't like being told everything I'm doing. I have to stop. There's a big stop energy. And it's like, whoa, how am I making so many mistakes? I've only, opened social media for 2 minutes here and I've been told 3 times I'm wrong. Like, give me a break. You don't know who I am or what I'm doing. But the impact is still there and they're trying to make an impact, right? The people with these advertisements, they want to impact you, but it's like it's nonstop. So for parents, one of the first things that I like to address with them is, look, there's no blame or shame here. This is information. We are looking for awareness and what is possible from here. What are our next steps? What works for you? What works for your child? Where are we going to go from here? And
Mhm.
shame and blame has no business anywhere. It is
Exactly.
a ridiculous invention. It doesn't need to be in our space. I don't accept it. Personal responsibility, however,
Yes.
is when you show up and you own it. And that's
Hmm.
Mhm.
basically it. And it's okay to say, hey, I made a mistake. Or, whoa, I got that wrong.
Mhm.
And that is a great modeling for your kids
Yeah.
Mhm.
because, perfectionists come from a place of, I can't make a mistake because that's bad.
Yeah.
I'm a
Mhm.
bad person if I get it wrong. I won't be loved if I don't get my
Hmm.
A plus, right? Like I'm not good enough if, and I spend so much time when I'm not being a BCBA, I'm a coach. And when I'm working with people on, okay, and where did that story come from? And how can we rewrite that story for a new one that you can function with? Because this nonsense of not being good enough is getting in your way.
Yes.
How do we open that up? So rather than perpetuating that with our kids, self-responsibility is a great anchor. It's a
Yeah.
really good, empowered space to come from. And blame and shame is so disempowering. I got
Exactly.
no time for it.
Hmm.
I
I know,
love
Lisha.
that.
Come on,
I
Lisha.
love that.
You're champing
You
at the
know,
bit here.
yeah, and to go along with that, I think is helping them to understand the consequences
Yes.
of their
Yes.
personal responsibility. A lot of times, we just have these routines around, oh, this person yelled and I'm going to yell back, but helping them to understand what are you going to do differently the
Hmm.
next time. This has been something that I've been practicing with my boys a lot this year is okay, so this was the outcome. And what are you going to do differently? What did you learn from this? And
Hmm.
doing it as close to immediate as possible so that there is no pattern that
Hmm.
is formed that is going to be hard to get rid of later. And
Yeah.
helping them to ask the questions to get the insight necessary for them to understand what kind of boundaries they need to set up or what kind of questions they need to ask, but it has to come from them seeing right then and there something that needs to change. For me, that has been a game changer because a lot of times we really don't involve kids into
Hmm.
learning about certain things. It's like, if you do something and it requires them to get a punishment or get their devices taken away, they don't have any input with that. It's
No.
like, okay, you did this, that's it. This is the consequence. But if they understand that, hey, I had a situation with my son who the first 2 days of school, he was one day, the first day he was running behind, the second day he actually was late. So the next day I said, so what are you going to do differently? Are you going to get up earlier? Are you going to maybe go to bed earlier? I said, because this is your responsibility to get here on time. And after that conversation, he decided to get up early and hasn't been to school late since. But I think if I didn't have that
Yeah.
conversation, it could have been, okay, this is the pattern for my sophomore year. I just don't get places on time. And it's like, you have to take accountability,
Hmm.
for your behavior. So
Hmm.
I think helping them to understand that their choices can dictate their behavior and the consequence that they choose before they even get to that point.
Owning it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Owning it, I think is really, really important. It's like, um, it, why did you do that? How did it make you feel? How did it make them feel? Own
Mm-hmm.
it. There's no shame or blame here. It's just
Right.
awareness that
Mm-hmm.
this is the repercussion of that action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the consequences from that? Like with my little 4-year-old and 2-year-old grandsons. With the 2-year-old is he has Down syndrome, so a little
Mm-hmm.
slower on the learning thing, and he's at this hitting stage where he thinks it's fun, and I think he's really just trying to pat, but he doesn't know his strength, which is extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4-year-old gets really, really upset over things,
Mm-hmm.
especially because he's very, very methodical with his cars, with his this, with his that. Along comes the 2-year-old and swishes them all on the floor and it's combustion time, right? And we've tried to say to him, look, he doesn't mean to do this to annoy you. He's a 2-year-old and this is his game. We can
Mm-hmm.
always put the cars back. Take a breath. It's okay. We can let this one go. right? But he's been having these like tantrums of when he's being, no, please stop doing that. And he carries on doing it. And then it's like parents explaining why he shouldn't do it. And then he goes into this complete um, trauma thing, really, where
Mhm.
the tears and the shutdown and everything else, and they don't know what to do with it. I know Mickey put her hand up first, Tina, but yes, I'd love to hear a feedback on this one. Mickey?
Tina, can you hang on to your thought for a minute?
Yeah.
Good. I have to work on that. I got to put a heads up on that one. Actually, what my comment was going to be on the consequences thing and the punishment thing. So whatever comes after a behavior needs to be immediate as far as possible. And here's the key that many parents don't get intuitively or from their own experiences as kids, and that is the consequences need to make sense. Right?
Yes.
If you're
Mhm.
walking down the road and you're looking at your phone and you walk into a pole, you are going to break your phone, hurt your head. Those are your immediate consequences. Chances are next time you go out, you're not going to do those behaviors because you remember last time that hurt, right? It made sense. So when a kid does something, maybe they say something to you that you don't like, and you say, right, that's it, I'm taking your iPad away. Those two things do not make sense. They
Mhm.
do not connect. And so the child learns that, you're going to do something really annoying to them, but they don't learn anything about
Right.
their behavior.
Mhm.
So the consequence needs to teach something,
Yes.
not be a punitive thing for the sake of being punitive. That's wildly unhelpful. You're not going to get anywhere with that. And then to speak very briefly to what you just said, when one child is being put upon by another, if you will, my personal response, and I'm looking for Tina's response after this, is to say, man, that's annoying. You work so hard on that thing, recognition of where they're
Mm.
at and what they've been doing and how they feel
Yeah.
about it has got to come before any other
Mhm.
response, right? Because otherwise the child
Mhm.
feels not seen, not heard, not valued.
Right.
So the first thing is, oh, wow, that was so annoying. Look at that. You did such a beautiful job too. I love the way you did these things. That was great. We can rebuild that, but he's two.
Mhm.
And so what that means is, and you do this little explanation thing, but number one thing for any
Yeah.
parent listening, validate your child's feelings because they're
Yeah.
feeling them. And they're not going to get past that if the validation doesn't come first. That's my take on it. Tina.
Exactly that, because we have to calm the amygdala with reflective listening
Mhm.
before we talk logic, because that's the prefrontal cortex and it's turned off.
Mhm.
The
Yep.
logic goes nowhere. So you can't treat him like that, or we're going to be able to put these back together, cannot be the first response.
Mhm.
Response needs to be, that was so disappointing.
Yeah.
You worked so hard to put your cars exactly that way. It looked so good. And then along he comes and boom, it's gone. Ah, that hurts. And then
Mhm.
a pause to allow that amygdala to register. I've been seen, which equals I will survive.
Mhm.
Mama sees me, daddy sees me. I will survive. And then the logic.
Mhm.
We can put this back together, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also teaching children to take a breath, or even taking a breath ourselves before we react,
Yes.
right? Like, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Take
Yep.
a breath. We want to react straight away, but like take a breath and teaching our children, let's take a breath. Just take a breath. Okay, now can you tell me how you're feeling?
Right.
Right? But have that breath first to get them into a state where they can either articulate it or, as you said, feel seen and heard. I'm interested in why you feel this way.
Yes, and a lot of times you can tell. You don't even need the child to articulate. They might not be old enough to articulate
Yeah.
how they feel, but you can tell. That was frustrating. That made you
Mm.
really upset, you know, so that you can just offer it to them, giving them feeling words because they might not have them yet. At
Hmm.
4 years old, they might not have them.
I often give parents an emotion wheel that has
Mm.
72 different emotions on it. And my main purpose for that is not to sort of say, well, you have to tick all these boxes and know what they all mean, but to say, how far out of the box are you looking? Like, what else could it be? Where are the nuances? Know that there's more than you know. There's more that I couldn't name the 72. Like
Hmm.
that would be, I don't know anybody that can, but they're there. And the point is to know that there are different shades, right?
Yes.
And so emotions should be felt. And as a parent, our first instinct is to say, no, 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 don't cry. Here, have a
Mhm.
cookie, right? We don't want them to be upset, but here, let me set you up for an eating disorder later. Have a cookie, have an ice cream,
Yeah.
have a whole relationship with fat and sugar that you really don't want to
Hmm.
have later. And as a nutrition coach as well, this is a big feature that comes up later in life is I am stressed, I am upset, I'm going to eat all the things. Instead of eating emotions, we need to get comfortable as a society
Hmm.
in just sitting with them.
Yes.
And if somebody else can acknowledge that, yeah, that sucked, or whatever version you want to give to your kid, right? Like that was rough. That's really good. That's human beings need that. We need to know that we're not like floating off on a, you know, the spaceship's here and we've gone off on a spacewalk and the thing got severed. Like we need to know we're connected. And that's a
And the
basic human being.
emotion, right? It's we have to spend the emotion in order to release the emotion so we don't become emotional of the emotion,
You got to process.
right?
If you
So,
don't process it, you
yeah,
stuff it down. And if you stuff it down, it comes
yeah,
back up.
it's a
A
volcanic
good book.
eruption.
A good book. The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Anybody that is interested to do some reading, you can get it for not a lot of money secondhand. You can get it
Mhm.
new. There's workbooks, there's all kinds of things. But Dr. Bessel, Bessel, Van, Van, Derkolk, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, that is a work that I think all parents could do with reading, but anybody that is navigating tough things could do with that book.
Tina?
I heard Dr. Bessel van der Kolk speak in person, and at the time, my boss was sitting next to me, and as he spoke, she kept looking at me. Well, that's what you say.
You're on the right track.
It was so funny. Um, and you couldn't be more right. I mean, we have to think about, you talked earlier, Sarah, about parents have to take a breath. Well, parents have amygdalas too.
Yes.
We have to acknowledge that they're acting out of a sense of fear that things aren't going to go well in the next minute and there's going to be a huge explosion and then they won't know what to do with it and all that. Or someone else is going to be judging them because their child's out of control. Boom,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
Um, so they have amygdalas too. So as I said before, everybody's innocent. We just have to give more information and support them as they apply the new information, by having another appointment and another appointment so that they feel like somebody's there for them because the changes don't happen overnight, of course. And so I tell people at the beginning, do this 57.3% of the time, so that they don't have to get into the perfectionism thing that we talked about earlier
Right.
too, because that's a killer. It discourages people if they're not doing it perfectly every moment. We're not going there with it, but just just to allow it to be a process. So I schedule people for 4 appointments to begin with, so that they know they've got me and they can text me between appointments even if they run into a snag, and that really helps them feel like they've got somebody in their corner, and
Hmm.
how to you're the adult, you can get an amygdala signal and breathe your way through it. you know
Hmm.
Kids can't do that nearly as easily as an adult can, but when you've got this awareness, you can just approach the child who's upset with calm, and they'll catch that it's contagious. Right.
But I think it's also us owning it.
That's
Like,
right.
oh, I'm sorry, darling. I got upset. All right,
Yes.
I need to take a breath. I need to calm down, and then we can talk about it. And or I made a mistake. Or I'm sorry, my reaction was negative. I acknowledge that. Let's talk about it. But I think a lot of the time we don't own it because we think we know everything. We've got to be everything. We never can be wrong. And I think when we own our own mistakes, our own faux pas, whatever they are, it teaches the kids that it's okay for me to have a mistake. Just own it because once you own it, you know how to correct it. But if we're not doing it, they're certainly not going to do it. Yes, Vicky.
This isn't for every parent, perhaps, but when my kids were younger and I was getting stressed over stuff they were doing, particularly if it was the two of them, I would give myself a timeout. I
Mm,
never gave my kids a timeout ever because kids don't actually know what to do with the timeout. They don't know what the purpose is. They don't know how to handle it. And so they just sit there and focus on your or what it, or being sad or something, but they don't really know how to do that. So the interesting way this worked though is I would say to my kids, okay, you two are in the playroom. You keep doing what you're doing. I'm not feeling okay right now. I need to take a break. I'm getting upset. So I'm going to be right in there reading a book. I'm going to come out in 5 minutes. I'll show you on the clock. Mommy's having a timeout. And the interesting thing is, the kids who have been raising Cain a moment ago would say, Mommy's having a timeout. We better be quiet. And they'd behave and they'd go quiet. And I'm reading my book and there'd be a knock on the door. Mommy, are you finished? Time out? No, 2 more minutes. And I would stay in there and give my amygdala a break and just, read my book or something. And then when I'd come out, they'd be sort of looking at me, you
Are you
okay?
okay?
You know, yeah, I'm good now. Are we going to clean up this playroom or what? And they would have calmed down because they're
Yes.
focused on mommy has a timeout. We better be quiet. So that is, although that's how I did it, I've also out of everybody I've seen use timeouts, I think that worked the best
Mm,
because I'm the one that needed the timeout. They didn't.
yes.
They were
Yes.
fine. They were doing their thing. They were having a blast. I needed the timeout. So consider that as an option. And you're not going to fight you when it comes to a timeout, right? The corner. Oh yeah, I do. I want to go in there with my book, and I'm going to lie down for a minute too.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're not locked away. You can hear
yeah.
them. Obviously you're not going to leave them playing in the kitchen or something, but so long as you've got the safety, you're pretty. You're cool with that. Mom having a timeout. Game plan.
Yeah. I mean, this is the shell for you, right? Then how many times have A, with 15 children, but also with your burnout and being super mom and everything else, how many times did you you needed the time out, you needed to breathe, right? And
So
how many
true.
times did you give that self to yourself?
It's true. I love that because, we're giving ourselves permission,
Yeah.
right, to admit some of the things that are overwhelming in real time and being able to show the kids a positive way to kind of get back to center. So
Hmm.
I think that really is an awesome example. We need to do more of that because, as a mom, you just think, I mean, there's so many things that my kids have done that I really did not know how to handle it.
Hmm.
It's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? When your kids get in arguments with their friends, and it's like, that this is something that kids do, but how do you express that in a way they can understand and that they want to tell you things in the future? We can't minimize it. We have to be able to be with them and help them through it, but they have to feel that there's a connection there. So there are just things that, and each child is different.
Yeah.
What work with one may not work with the next one. So then you're even more at a loss for words. So I just think that was awesome. I'm
But it's
definitely
okay
going to
for,
tell my kids.
yeah, exactly. For you to say, you know what, I haven't got the answer for that right now.
Yes.
Let me take some time to think about it and I'll get
Mhm.
back to you. You're not dismissing. All right.
Right.
You're just saying, I need to actually think about this to know how to address this.
Mhm.
And then when you do, they know, well, she's put some thought into this.
Right.
Right. And it's not just dismissing it, and that teaches them. You don't have to come up with an answer straight away. You can go away and think about something and kind of work it out before, you react to it. Right. So I
Mhm.
think that's teaching them, don't react to everything. It's okay to pause,
Mhm.
recollective, and then address it. And I think that's really good teaching there. Tina.
Mhm.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. It sets the example for the child. And
Mm,
I say to parents, tell them, don't answer me now. Just think about
yes.
this, right? You don't have to answer me now. Just think about it. And
Mhm.
another one is, when we were talking about consequences earlier, I love to help parents, instead of stopping bad behavior, growing good behavior.
Hmm. Hmm.
So seeing them when they're doing the right thing, usually what we do is breathe a sigh of relief and walk out of the room when things are going well, right? But if we say to the amygdala, I see you, the amygdala says, Mom saw you do that again.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
So
Yep.
I use the phrase, when you, I feel because. When you treat your sister with kindness, even if it was like for an eighth of a second,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel so impressed, because it just shows me what a wonderful big sister you know how to be.
Hmm.
And the because reinforces that's who you are, a wonderful big sister, you know.
Yeah.
Then the heart tells the brain, I'm a good big sister. And that
And
Mhm.
I
really,
like this feeling.
yeah. And I and if we strengthen the neural pathways heart to brain, because the heart does talk to the brain, and now we even know the heart has brain cells.
Hmm.
If we strengthen the neural pathways by repetition, which is what all learning is, when you, I feel because, we just put it in the child, I'm a good kid, I can do the right thing, instead of I'm always the one who messes up, you know. And
Mhm.
And I feel good about it.
yeah.
Right. I feel good about this. I'm doing this with my 4-year-old. I feel good about it. Oh, thank you so much for doing
Mhm.
that. Like, preparing for the next baby, you're going to be big brother. And we are going to ask things that if you let us know if it's too much, but I really do appreciate your help. And now he's just doing things without being asked, right? Because he feels good about it.
Mhm.
And like case with his cast, like, oh, Louis, instead of getting so upset about it and just putting them back together. So I think, yeah, encouraging them to come from the heart more, and being kind of proud and, feeling it. I think is something really important. Mickey?
It's not a technical term, but in behavior analysis, we typically look to catch them being good.
Mm,
That's the phrase, catch them being good, and reinforce everything that you want to see.
mm,
And then we redirect or give alternative behaviors and reinforce the alternative behaviors. So I know ABA has a bad reputation for a lot of people, totally get it. And historically, it's had some questionable origins, right? So there were periods in the 70s where this was not a particularly gentle branch of psychology, shall we say. But these days, I would like to think that my fellow therapists are in the same space with me on this, that it's about reinforcing what you want to see,
mm,
redirecting to what you want to see, and basically focusing on way less punishment. Like that is a
yes.
last resort thing to use punishment. But focusing on the positives. Because we all experience good feelings when somebody tells us we've done a good thing. So the next thing then is to say, wow, are you proud of yourself? That was such a cool thing. Rather than I'm proud of you, because they don't need to earn
Right.
your approval. They need to feel it themselves autonomously.
Mhm.
So are you proud of yourself for that?
Mhm,
Wow, did you recognize how amazing you just did
mhm,
that? How
mhm,
does that feel? Yeah, cool, right? It's
Mhm.
it's like getting your black belt in karate, only you did it for this thing. Like you can be as playful as you like, but
Mhm.
really acknowledging, hey, that was cool, right? That was such a good thing. Can I see more of that? How are you going to
mm,
do that again? Like, where else can we do this? Ooh, I love
mhm,
that. And another thing in behavior analysis is behavioral momentum. And we've kind of addressed that earlier without using the words, but I'm going to bring it up again. And behavioral momentum is you do some successful things, right? Really easy success. Clap your hands, touch your nose, touch your ears. You
mhm,
did great. Tie your shoelaces. Like you're going to do some quick successes and then throw in, this is a high probability thing. You're going to throw in a task you want them to do that's a little bit harder. And the behavioral momentum becomes motivating to
yeah.
do more things. And you can carry that positive emotion forward. So we
Mhm.
typically think, oh, you need to be motivated to do X. No, you need success to be motivated to do X.
Yes.
So getting those easy wins is always a great way to redirect your child. if they're off on a direction that you think, yeah, this is not going to end well. I've seen this one before. Um, how can you redirect them to do something that you know is a no-brainer and they can totally do it easily? Brilliant. That's wonderful. Let's
Mm,
put the positive praise on that. Appropriately, though, call it for what it is,
right.
and then give them the next thing and the next thing. And there you go. You've just redirected your kid.
Yes.
No punishment required, and you've got the behavior you want to see. So
Yeah.
for parents, none of this is overnight. And I
No.
too
No.
have been told, where were you X number of years ago? And I'm like, learning my lessons,
Yeah.
you know. I didn't have me when I was a parent either. I was totally winging it. And my own childhood experience means I did not grow up with a role model for how to parent.
Mm,
I do not come from a space of, hey, this is a really good idea. Not at all. So I learned behavior when I was a toddler. I could read behavior before I could talk because I needed to know that stuff to stay safe, right?
yes.
So when it came to parenting, I was not doing it from a space of, warm, nurturing, hey, I know what this feels like. It was more like, what happens when I do this?
Yes.
So when you hear what we're saying today, none of us, I don't think, are saying, hey, we've got it. We got it down. We got it perfect. We know what we're doing. No, 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 no. We don't. But we've made a lot of mistakes. I can speak for me anyway. I've made a lot of mistakes, so you don't have to. And that's what an expert is. That's what reaching out for help is. That's what your helpers are people who have already done stuff, so you don't have to, ideally. So parents, please don't feel overwhelmed by any of this. We're
Right.
putting together what's taken years,
Exactly.
right?
And
It,
hence the
it has
reason for
taken a
these,
long time.
the reason for putting these shows together is that everybody has a little snippet of it. But before we go around and do the closing out, there's just one more topic I want to talk about, and that is boundaries, right? And, boundaries is something that um, I'll talk about my grandkids. They know that Nana isn't going to accept X, Y, and Z, and they don't try it on me, but I see them do it on their parents and get the reaction that they want. And all I have to do is give the look. And it's like, okay, Nana doesn't, Nana's not buying this. Right. And I think that's something that we really need to have with our children is the boundaries of what you can and cannot do, what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. Okay, Mickey, go ahead.
I love the subject of boundaries. It's
Mm,
like a big thing for me. I've done podcast episodes on it and all sorts. And typically these days, we need to teach the parents what a boundary looks like
mm,
first, and that a boundary doesn't mean you're being mean. It
right.
means you're establishing parameters for
Yes.
behavior so that the child knows this is where I end and that person starts. This is my autonomy here, and that is theirs, and we all have one. And it's boundaries need to make sense. They are
Yeah.
not a movable feast. It's not an arbitrary rule. It is something where you say, up to this point, we're cool. After that, we're not cool.
Mm.
That's not. And when you cross that, this is what happens. And the
Consequences.
consequence, the event needs to make sense.
Yes.
And I can't stress that enough with all these things that we try and put into place for a parent trying to establish a new boundary or something, does it make sense? And
Mm,
are you prepared to go there?
mm,
Because the child will push the boundary. They have to. They need to know if it's real. They
mm.
need to know if it's going to move. And if your boundaries move, and what that looks like is, oh, just this once. Oh, okay, then.
Yeah.
Well, all right, you might think you're giving in just this once, but what your child is hearing is,
Push, push,
okay,
push.
I need to try some more to
Yeah.
push that thing because we're not there yet. And
Yeah.
when you say things that you don't follow through on, like if you don't get up off that floor and come out of this store right now, I'm leaving you there, right? Oh, you're not going to do that
Yeah.
because either bad
Yeah.
things are going to happen. So you're not going to do that. Now you're teaching your child you don't mean what you say, which
Yes.
means you can't be trusted when you
Mm,
say something.
mm,
And it also means, well, I can do this behavior because they don't really have any power over that.
mm.
None of this is conscious, but you're
No.
teaching it to them on a very cellular level. And you don't really want your kid to think that, A, you don't mean what you say, well, it's not that they think it, they're seeing it. They witness that, right? So it's not a boundary, right? When you say, get up or I'm leaving you in the store, that's not a boundary. That is a reaction, and it's a very amygdala freak out reaction, right? That's a people are judging me because you're not behaving the way I'm telling you to kind of reaction. And boundaries are, let's set the expectations before we go. I'm going to tell you what happens if those expectations are not met, and I'm going to follow through, and they're all going to make sense. It's
Yeah,
going to be something I'm prepared to
to
do.
follow
Not that
through
I'm
on.
going to back down on,
Yeah.
because you're going to end up in a world of hurt for yourself if you do that. The behavior will increase.
Mm.
It
I
truly
think it
will.
teaches respect, right?
Mhm.
That boundary, respect,
Well, it just
and
teaches what's really there,
yeah,
and what's empty talking,
right.
right?
Mhm.
And there's so much empty talking out there. You don't want to be one of those voices.
No, no, definitely not. Tina.
Amen to that.
I like the words calm and certain.
Mm,
When we're calm and certain, we give kids where the edges are because they're always looking for where the edges are, right? It's
mhm.
like
Mhm.
being a child is one big science experiment.
Exploration.
Yeah, it's a science experiment. Where's the wall here and where's the wall here, as you were gesticulating earlier, And when we teach them very certainly and calmly where it is, they feel safe.
Yeah. Yes.
And we
They
want,
know the limit.
yeah, and we
Mhm.
want them to feel safe in our presence first and foremost.
Yes.
The the biggest predictor of life success is not whether you get all A's or whether you
Mm-mm.
go to the best school or whether you get accepted to that college or that job. It's connected parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Helping the child feel seen and heard is the biggest predictor of success and happiness in life.
Mhm.
And the biggest fuel that
Love
you can
that.
give your child to go to adulthood. Hey, Lachelle?
Yeah, and one of the things that comes to mind for me with boundaries is that it helps you maintain your self-control.
Mm-hmm.
When you establish, hey, this is going to be the limit, you don't have to yell, scream,
Mm,
and be in that out of control state. And so it really helps your kid to navigate through that uncomfortable moment of whatever the consequence is, without alienating them from you.
mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, I had a situation with one of my sons. He drives now. And so a couple weeks ago, he borrowed some gas money, right? Because he works and has his own money. And so I gave him the gas money. He's like, I'm going to pay you back, mom, whatever day. So he hadn't paid me back. And so he asked me a few days ago if he could borrow some money. And I said, no, you never paid me back the other money that you brought for gas. And it was just so matter of fact. It wasn't
Mm,
like you don't pay your bills or
right.
whatever the case
Mm,
is. It was like, okay, this is why we're not having this is why we're not having this arrangement, because that's a consequence. So I
mm,
think boundaries really are good for that so that they don't have to go through this internal conversation of thinking that they're not worthy,
yeah.
nobody loves them. It's just, hey, again, this is a consequence based on what your choice was in that moment.
Excellent. Yeah. Quick, Mickey, then we'll be rounding
Yep,
up.
it is quick. It is quick. I just want to point out that what you did made sense,
Mm-hmm.
and it followed on, right?
Yeah.
Like you said you were going to pay me back, you didn't pay me back, therefore you don't get more money. Boom. That's exactly what I'm talking about having it make sense and having it be something that you can follow through on. So thank you for providing a perfect example.
Now we are, coming up on the second hour here. So I would like to go around to everyone and what kind of wisdom or roundup you would like to close out the show with for everybody who is listening. The show has been around the chaos and the trauma and the everything that is out there in the world and how parents can navigate it, how they can listen to their children, which seems the common theme of listen to your children. They will tell you what they need. Stop trying to be the be all and the end all for them. It is actually a partnership with your children, right? So I just like a little roundup from every one of you. Tina?
I'd like to just thank everybody too for this wonderful conversation. And I think connectedness, just think in terms of connectedness before you think of control, so um, connect and reflect before you expect.
Mm,
Mm.
I like that. I like that. Michelle?
I would say, never stop being vulnerable and
Mm,
transparent, because conversations like this, everyone needs to be encouraged that they're on the right road. And a lot of times, with the road and the journey we're taking, it doesn't look good. It's messy, but we're still making some progress. So when we're able to be vulnerable with our kids, with other parents, with administrators or counselors, that's the thing that's going to help us all learn and grow and have a better outcome. So never stop being vulnerable or transparent
it's the
with the
greatest
right
gift you can give
people.
yourself with the right
With
people.
the
And
right
it's,
people.
yes, with the right people. And it's the greatest gift you can give yourself, I think,
Hmm.
your invulnerability. Mickey.
I'm going to say parents need to give themselves some grace, which
Mm,
does not mean complacency. It means give yourself some grace. We all make mistakes. That is the thing with being human. And if you didn't, that would probably be an issue.
yes.
So, the other thing is other parents aren't doing better than you. We're all on the same journey, and reach out for help.
Yes.
Like, even ideally before you need it. Like, if
Mm,
you can get your helpers in place before you need help, epic. So, be open, look around you and see what's possible. And please don't go to the blame shame game,
yes.
because there are no winners. That is not cool. Blaming yourself, blaming others, no.
Mm, no. Very counterproductive, most certainly. Um, Now, I'm inviting everybody to come back and listen to Tina's show. So if you go to self-discoverywisdom.com and put in Tina Feigal, Feigal, and listen to her previous show with us. And you will also find all her social media and links there. But quickly, what is your link, love?
How do I parent this child.com?
Very simple. How do I parent this child.com? And with Lachelle and Mickey, they're both a part of the Forgotten Children book series. And you'll go to the orchard of wisdom.org under our forgotten children, and you will see all of the shows and their participation in the book and all of their information there as well. But Lachelle, would you like to give your URL where people can reach you?
Yeah, LachelleAtkins.com. So very simple. E.
LACHELLADKINS.com.
Yes.
And of course, Michaela's in the book as well. We've done quite a number of shows as well. So make sure you give everybody how they can reach you as well.
If you find my website, it's
Yep.
gaffinstone.com, or I love emails, and that's very simple. Michaela@gaffinstone.com. Real easy. So if you look at my name on the Zoom thing,
For
assuming it's
people who
there
are
in the
listening,
recording,
can you spell it out now?
people who are listening, Michaela is Michaela. Gaffin is Gaf as in Frank, F as in Frank, En, Stone like a rock. It's all one word. So Michaela@gaffinstone.com. I love emails and I will totally answer you. Please just put in the heading where you heard me from, and then I'll happily converse.
I'm hoping that today has just kind of giving you some peace of mind, giving you some tools and tips, understanding the conversation needs to be had. My motto with these shows is listen, learn, and apply. I'm also a big one about having podcast parties where you listen to a podcast with a bunch of friends, take notes, and then share what you got out of it. It broadens what the perspective and the view and everything. I'd also like you to get from this that, again, no shame and no blame. There is no perfection in parenting. It is all communication, it's all navigation. And the more you know how to do it, the easier it becomes and the more joyful it becomes. When you're in joy, and when your kids feel they can communicate with you, when you're seeding those wonderful seeds of who they are, you're going to see a synergy of beauty grow, and these children grow up to be adults that are kind, caring, considerate, compassionate, creative, and believe in themselves. Then we will see a less dysfunctional society because we've really seeded the beauty of all that we can be. So many other shows here on raising our gifted children on self-discovery wisdom.com. I invite you to come back and listen to them. And thank you for listening. It's very, very important that we keep this conversation going. Um, Please share it with other parents. This is something I've learned. What do you think? How can we form something together? Take it to your teachers. What do they need to hear from you? We're expecting them to do it all themselves. They need a team of their own. They need parents to work with them, right? So they can help with their own children. And I think it's very, very important that we look at supporting our village, our community, our parents, our children, the grandparents, the extended family, and really push our government to invest in families, in children, because this is really where the enrichment and the abundant lies. And if we do not invest in that, what kind of society are we going to have? Very much a reflection of what we're seeing now, and we need to turn the tide. So thank you, ladies, for being with us here today. It's been an absolute delight in having you here. I thank you all very much. Don't forget to get the book, folks, and read the book, and keep on listening, keep on conversing, keep on learning, because our children are worth it and so are we. And so until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.